Hello, good evening and welcome to the program. This is Daily Politics live on Trust TV, your destination for everything politics, policy and governance. My name is Abdullahi Ahmed. Welcome to the program. Tonight, we explore the critical role of religious leaders in driving accountability and fostering development in a society grappling with a growing trust deficit between leaders and the led. While these leaders often influence electoral choices, their perceived silence amid rising hardships and economic challenges raises questions about the intersection of politics and religious obligations. Joining us to shed light on this prominent development is Islamic scholar Dr. Nuru Khalid, popularly known as the Digital Imam. Before we set the conversation in motion with our panelists tonight, let's bring you up to speed with some of the developments around the polity, especially regarding the takes of the clergymen on the state of the nation. Here's Trust TV's Shafiu Suleiman with this report on the fate of the nation vis-a-vis the take of some of the most prominent Islamic scholars from northern Nigeria.
Through an interpreter, Sheikh Sharif Saleh emphasized the need for selfless, people-centered governance free from ethnic or sectional biases.
We should not go after selfish interests and greed. This is the reason why all prophets of Allah, Jesus, Prophet Musa and Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, are all looking after the well-being of their communities, of their followers and of their societies. To an extent, Sheikh also reminded us that it is in the teachings of this religion that should you have enough to feed yourself and those close to you, and your neighbor should be starving, your iman is not complete.
The scholar also stressed the significance of national unity and resilience, urging Nigerians to turn to God for divine intervention to overcome the country's complex challenges.
Also, Sheikh added that if you are in whatever capacity we are, the first thing that we should consider is that whatever we do should be of benefit to the entire community and to the entire society. Leaders are elected into their various offices, capacities and appointments just to promote the peaceful coexistence and the betterment of their societies. The first duty to discharge is that to make sure the community that voted you, the society that you are leading, and wherever you find yourself, is having that betterment that is expected of you to deliver to them.
He appealed to the media to highlight the pressing issues affecting ordinary citizens and call on those close to the nation's leadership to offer honest counsel free from personal or selfish interests.
That was Trust TV's Shafiu Suleiman, I beg your pardon, speaking to the development around the polity, covering the take of the chairman of the Fatwa Committee of the Nigeria Supreme Council for Islamic Affairs, Sheikh Sharif Saleh, there speaking through an interpreter on the state of the nation. And of course, he was talking about national unity, good governance and a variety of issues. So let's bring in our guest for the conversation tonight. The one and only digital imam, Dr. Nuru Khalid, is joining the conversation on Daily Politics tonight. Thank you so much for joining us in the program. Good evening to you.
Thank you for having me and good evening.
Right. Let me first of all just get your impression of where we are right now as a country. What do you make of the state of affairs?
Well, we have to give glory to the Almighty for keeping us together as one nation. Despite the challenges and the problems, we are still one Nigeria. But the situation needs more efforts to change the narratives of the situations. You know, the difficulties, economic difficulties, inflation, insecurity, despite the claim by the government that they are doing their best.
So, I mean, we're obviously looking at some of these developments from the contributions as well as interventions of religious leaders, members of the clergy like yourself, in shaping the conversation around good governance, around dividends of democracy, around quality leadership. Talk to me about what you think the role of members of the clergy, generally speaking, has been in shaping Nigeria to be the country that it is today?
Well, I think the clergymen are doing average, not very well. Looking at the fact that some of the clergymen have taken sides, which is not supposed to be like that. We're supposed to balance the equator by calling for good governance in the country, for checkmates. What are the politicians doing? What are they supposed to be doing? A clergyman is not somebody who superheaded the issue of faith only, but life in general. So we have to call upon the citizens to do the right thing, to discharge their civil duty as people, as state citizens. As well, we have to call the politicians to shape the polity and give us the right democracy, the true democracy, which is all about good governance, transparency, and rule of law. It is all about having a true democracy which promotes liberty and freedom of thoughts and actions. So I think we have a long way to go, but we can discharge our duty as clergymen without being at the middle, not taking side.
You think, members of the clergy should go beyond spiritual leadership? You think they should be multidimensional? They should be able to opine on politics, on social life? I mean, social life and spirituality obviously have some sort of intersection, but you believe there's nothing wrong with the commentary of members of the clergy in politics and in policy?
Yeah, I think the world is dual. We have physical and spiritual world, and they interwove. You can have a spirit without a vessel that is living in, and you can't, the physical being is useless without the spirit. And that is why a clergyman must look beyond the spirit, must talk about the physical world, because we are living in the physical world. And therefore, we must look at coexistence, good governance, unity, social cohesion, as well as good citizenship and good polity.
And when I talk about the politicization of the pulpit, for instance, we've seen more and more political messaging coming from men of the cloth, so to say, on both sides. And many Nigerians have expressed their dissatisfaction with that, even though many have said, that type of guidance is needed in terms of identifying what people need to understand about what is needed for quality leadership, whether it is in terms of elections or in terms of the governance process, generally speaking. What do you think is fundamentally wrong with the approach of, some of the political messages we're hearing from the pulpit, whether it's in the church or it's in the mosque?
Politicalization of the pulpit is wrong, but using the pulpit to correct polity is right. When I say politicalization of the pulpit is for the imam or the pastor to look like a partisan politician. If you are going to be a partisan politician, leave the home of God. Join the wagon of the politicians. But when I say checkmating and correcting the polity of the country using the pulpit, I mean whenever a leader went wrong, we need imams that will look at his face as a leader and tell him the truth that no, this is not the contract given to you by the citizens. You can't tell me that it is right for an imam to see a leader abusing the act of procurement and keep quiet. Look at what happened to our electricity supply. We are now in court. Nigeria is in court in France. Had it been when the minister signed, approved the inappropriate what that lead to the case, had it been that majority of the clergy spoke well and say, no, we can't, this is wrong, I think we couldn't have gone there. We need people who will talk to the power.
And do you think also it's fair to say that the committee of clergymen and women in this country have significantly lost their integrity, so to say, when it comes to messaging, and that's why we are where we are today?
No, the right word is they are losing. They have not lost it entirely. They are losing their weight. And why they are losing is because they allow the politician to manipulate their minds. If we allow the politicians to manipulate religion, we are finished. Because when you set Nigeria on entirely religious polity, you are setting that country on a time bomb. Even places like Algeria, who have majority 90-something% Muslims, like Egypt, cannot play politics with religion and get it wrong. Go back to the history and get it right. They can't do that. Even Saudi Arabia cannot play politics with religion and get it and get it right. Talk less of Nigeria. The population is divided across the religions. I mean Christianity, Islam, and traditional religion. And each and every one of us has right in the citizenship of the country. Therefore, we need to keep religion out of politics and politics out of religion. We need to separate the two. But when it comes to transparency, when it comes to good governance, when it comes to good leadership, the religion has to take a good place, and that will promote the integrity of the clergymen.
Doctor, isn't that a bit too late at this point? I mean, against the backdrop of what happened in 2023, you are well aware of the uproar that accompanied the nomination or announcement of Senator Kashim Shettima as the running mate of then candidate Bola Ahmed Tinubu, the Muslim ticket. I mean, isn't it a bit too late at this point to say that, you know, religion has not been politicized or politics has not been, you know, affected by religious sentiments? No,
it's never too late, because we have 2027 at the corner, and we are working tirelessly to make sure that religion has not been monopolized, and the so-called Christian, Muslim, or Muslim Christian should never be in our agenda in 2027. What will be in our agenda in 2027 must be quality leadership, a candidate that is capable. We must articulate. I think many Nigerians have started doing that, articulating what are the qualities of a good leader. And we must make Nigerians aware that these are the qualities. It's not a matter of geographical location. We have tried that and paid the price. It's not a matter of faith. We have tried that and we are paying the price now. It's not a matter of ethnicity. We have tried that and we are paying the price. Now it is time to talk as Nigerians. It is time to vote in a good, democratic, and true democracy.
And knowing what you know about Nigeria and Nigerians, don't you think that sentiment always overrides logical thinking?
That is when there are no leaders to correct the mistakes. It is in the history. The masses always make mistakes. They misbehave. But you have leaders, good leaders, who correct and bring the issue of citizenship first. Throughout the history of democracy, that was what had happened.
And you consider how Nigeria, always enjoys this characterization as a deeply religious country. And you look at what's happening right now, whether it's with the economy, with the governance process, our challenges with insecurity, education, healthcare, the joblessness issue, and a variety of other issues. What do you think is perhaps the best way to course correct our mindset around how to apply religion in politics and vice versa?
Is to stop being religious. Let's stop being religious. Let's start being godly. If we are godly enough.
What's the difference?
The difference is that being religious is just about ceremonies. You go to church, you pray the congregational prayer. That is religion. That is the institution. But being godly is the issue of your mind. That spirit of being good. That feeling ashamed of doing the wrong thing. How can you tell me that somebody who loot the entire Ministry of Education, that will affect the life of children in the near future, will go to heaven? How many children, more than 5 million children in Nigeria are not going to school? Are we that poor? How can somebody mismanage the resources of 200 million people and go to heaven? The misinterpretation of religion, the misinterpretation of being godly, the misinterpretation of ways to heaven is what caused Nigeria in the place we are. Chinese are not that religious, but they are moving their country forward. Look at all the 10 countries that are moving their country forward. They are not that religious. So let's start being godly more than being religious.
And what do you say to people who say, there's nothing with being religious, there's nothing with being religious, there's nothing with being wrong with being godly? I mean, we can juxtapose one country or the other, but religion is a significant part of the identity of most Nigerians, whether it's Islam or Christianity or traditional religion. Nigerians identify themselves with their faith significantly, much more than they do identify with themselves as citizens of this country. Where does this shift need to start? Because sometimes it's easier said than done, isn't it? You realize that this is a Herculean task for us to change the mindset of a significant part of the population when it comes to the way we view things, whether it's in government or is in our day-to-day livelihood, for instance. Where do you see the handshake coming from? Because sometimes the leaders, whether in the religious cycle or in the political cycle, meet and they smile and they shake. You realize that that same energy does not translate to everyday Nigerians, for instance.
I think we have to identify our mistakes. And one of the mistakes is thinking that we have to be religiously away from God. But when we understand that we need to be closer to the Almighty than to be religious, we will get it right. Just before I came here, I was attending a case where a very religious family dropped a child away. Drop a child because the daughter was impregnated by someone who ran away. And they are very religious. Now, how can you put it in the scenario of the scriptures? Take the Quran or the Bible, check it well. Is it when we are talking about morality, are we talking out of context of the books, context of the scriptures? I mean the Quran, and are they not telling us to be morally okay? Why is it that we claim to be so religious to the extent that religion is part of our identity, but we are not morally correct? Why are we going away from ethics and values, and we still claim to be religious? Can you tell me that ethics and values are not among the teachings of our religions? It's because we fail to be godly. That is why we forget about the issue of ethics, morality, and values. We talk about the identity and differences between Muslims and Christians. And we tend to take the religion as a tool of destruction, not tools of development.
And in talking about the leadership recruitment challenges that we continue to face, because for the most part, the common consensus is that the leadership recruitment process is faulty. You could talk about the political parties themselves and how deeply flawed they are, but more importantly, on election day, people are pigeonholed into their different tribal groups or religious groups to vote in a particular manner. Talk to me about how the demonetization of our electoral process has also affected the committee of religious leaders, for instance, where you realize that certain groups of imams or pastors align with one political candidate or political party or political movement because of what they are potentially going to get if those politicians make it into government, and how that is also feeding into this growing problem about the politicization of religion in this country.
I told you earlier we have the problem of definition. We fail to define rightly what is all about being religious and what is being godly. Look at this. All the apostles and messengers of Allah came to preach spirituality, not materialism. But now, the ulamas and the pastors are inclined to this, what do you call it, materialism. The pastor is and the imam are competing with the politicians in terms of the kind of clothes they wear, the motors they drive, the houses they reside, the money they spend. Until when the ulamas start to agree that Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam was never materialist. Until when the pastors agree that Jesus Christ alayhi salam wasn't materialist. Until when the imam is not looking at the governor better than him. Until when he start considering that what he has is better than that of the hand of the governor. Until when he can look at the eyes of the governor and speak to him directly that you are not abiding by the appropriation of bill of this year. until when we have that, then we can see.
Is that a fair generalization, Dr. Khalid? Because there are some who would be listening to you and say, well, you're painting everybody with the same brush. I mean, there are exceptions, isn't it? There are those who are speaking truth to power in this country.
They are. I didn't say all of the politicians are bad and all of the clergies are bad. But we always look at the majority.
Majority are bad?
I don't know. You have the statistics, or if you don't have the statistics, it is your duty to make a research journalism.
What do you think? Do you have more good than bad in terms of the numbers?
The situation of the country will give you the statistic. If the country is moving forward, then majority of the citizens are good. If the country is moving forwards economically, then majority of the politicians are good. And if the country is moving forward in terms of security and social coexistence, then the majority of the clergy are nice. So check it.
Right. Okay. So indirectly, the answer is no. Right. But let me just get your take on the national debates and conversations that often divide views along religious lines, along ethnic lines, along regional lines. Case in point, the recent conversations about the tax reform bills, a very much contested piece of legislation that the Tinubu administration is championing, that it says is going to revolutionize and reposition the economic fortunes of this country. You have also given your take on this one, but more importantly, we've seen a chorus of narratives from members of the clergy who are jumping in, and the pushback has been, well, you might be spiritually educated on a variety of issues, but you're no tax expert, you're no academic, you're not an economist. Why are you opining on things you know very little about? It brings me to the question of, do you think the commentary of some of the members of the clergy about things they know very little about is acceptable?
It's not. It's never acceptable. You have to know about things before you start talking publicly. Because, for instance, if you look at the idea of tax reform bill, you find that the governors, not all of them, have said their minds. The legislators said their minds, and in the other hand, the presidency said their minds. Now, as a clergy, if I look at the three stands and drive my own opinion from that, it's not an academic opinion, rather a religious opinion. But if I read the bill itself and understand it, discuss it with somebody who is an expert in two ways. One, an expert in law, a legislator, an expert in taxation. Maybe to add another one, an expert in economy. Now I can talk about it correctly. That is why I took the stand of saying that whatever the case, whatever the result of the tax reform bill will be, they're not supposed to look at it stand, because all what they are saying about the reform is that they were not ready, or they are not ready for it. That is the most important point. Now, if the Tinubu administration failed to take the bill to the end, it will go back and reconstruct it, refine it, and reproduce it again. Or another government will come with it. Will we be saying we are not ready forever? But if we can now start to make sure that what we are lacking that made us vulnerable in the taxation now will be reformed and improved, so that next time we will not be lagging behind. It will be better for us. And that is, I think, according to me, a good stand.
And just to double down on that, right, there are a variety of issues, and especially given some of the conversations online about what is happening in the north, what is happening in the south, what is happening across the country, the state of the economy, the rising cost of living, and so on and so forth. Some of the commentary we're getting from members of the clergy are either in support of what the government is doing or a complete critique of how the government is running the show. And more often than not, the messenger, the identity of the messenger, the regional identity of the messenger, the religious identity of the messenger gets dragged into the conversation, looking at how it is being understood or misunderstood, as the case may be. Do you think that because, for instance, some say the past administration was led by someone who came from the north, and he has arguably enjoyed a huge support, especially during his first tenure, from every nook and cranny of the north, right? Especially members of the clergy. They were saying nice things about him, about his character, about his integrity, and so on and so forth. However, that sort of goodwill has not been extended to the Tinubu administration, for instance, and people are drawing comparisons and saying, well, why is the truth not, cutting across everybody? Why is the truth selective? Because of the person in charge and where he comes from. Do you think there's some truth to that argument?
Yeah, someone may be true to say that not only this time, ever before Nigeria is being divided, there are true geographical and ethical sentiments, and therefore if we want a true democracy, we have to stop it by ourselves, because no government in Nigeria that had not suffered that kind of sentiment. When it is a government led by a northerner, the southerners and the westerners will be in the front of criticizing the government. And when the government is from the south, the leader is from the south, the northerners and some of the westerners will now be criticizing the government. We have to stop that. For instance, if we are going to be sincere about what is happening in Nigeria, the high inflation, bad economy, majority of it was an inherent one. Buhari started it. But when he was planting the plants of bad governance during his first tenure, the northerners abused him, promoting him, protecting his policy, whether a good one or bad one. Now that we are paying the price, generally the Nigerians are paying the price, and most importantly, the North is more paying the price than anybody. Check it across and see. So now they have someone to blame. I'm not saying Tinubu's administration is perfect, is good or what, but I'm saying that the North now is over-criticizing the administration of Tinubu compared to what they did during the
Do you think this double standard, Dr. Khalid, is acceptable?
It's not.
I mean, it's innate. It's a part of us that sometimes we're just biased like that.
It's the part of some of us. I was a victim of that sentiment, because I was victimized because I was criticizing the incapacity of the administration of Muhammad Buhari. I criticized most of his policies that we are now suffering because of them. And that was made me a victim. And alhamdulillah, later on it made me a celebrity. People are saying, yeah, this man was saying the truth. So now it is time to look at it holistically. Let's look at how Tinubu came in, what has he done right, and what is he doing wrong. And let's criticize whatever he is doing wrong, not on the basis that he is not from the north, not on the basis that he is Omo Yoruba or Baba Yoruba, but on the basis that this is inappropriate. That is all.
So it should be judged on the merit and demerit of his performance, actions or inactions, and that's the way it's supposed to be. You hear the conversations around whether the economy is going in the right direction, whether this corrective measures that the Tinubu administration say it is carrying out is going to end up yielding the fruits of the sacrifice that Nigerians are making at the moment. Where do you stand with the renewed hope agenda? Are you inspired positively to expect things to turn around? Where do you stand on where things are currently?
Well, my stand is that I am waiting to see how to give a good aggregates about the performance of the government. It is too early for us to say Tinubu is getting it right or wrong. But the situation of the cost of living and the high cost of governance, if he cannot merge the two, if he cannot balance it and make a kind of average, he will not succeed.
So you would say so far so good, or so far not so good?
So far average.
Right. So far average. Okay. At least I got a very direct response from you. But in talking largely about the issues bedeviling different parts of the country, there are common denominators, right? Unemployment, poverty, insecurity, and so on and so forth. You look at where the North is right now as a region. The largest in terms of population, the largest in terms of land size, the largest in terms of liabilities also, because the northern part of the country is dealing with a significant part of the insecurity situation. You talk about the out-of-school children that you referenced earlier. The north has more than 70% of the burden, much of it in the northwest and some of it in the northeast also. And you look at infrastructure, the economy also. I mean, the indices, the metrics are quite grim, to say the least. Give me a sense of what sort of wake-up call northern Nigeria needs right now, because you get the feeling that the rest of the country thinks the north is the one dragging the country, or perhaps the dead weight that this country needs to sort out. What does the north need right now to level up?
Renaissance. We need rebirth. We need to rejubilate the north. We need to create a new north. A new north that majority of it is productive. Not a north that majority of it are not productive. And we cannot do that without reducing our religious sentiments.
We're too religiously sentimental?
Yes, of course. Look at the Middle Belt. God forbid, if Nigeria should be divided, we don't have the north that we are claiming to have now. The Middle Belt will not agree to join us. Why? Because of religious sentiments. Look at the core north, the insecurity, the poverty, the lack of education is centered there. Why? We produce close to more than half of the leadership of Nigeria from the history today. What have we enjoyed from the leadership our people did? What have they produced to the North? And now if there will be election, before 1 year to election, we will now start talking about the North. And we will produce a leader who will never succeed because of his incapacity. Therefore, we need to rebuild the North or reproduce another entirely new North. That the youths are so productive, so educated, and education will be not to acquire a job from the federal government. Let's start educating our youth in terms of skill acquisition, so that they will be productive, so that they can, start doing something. We have the largest scale of land, and we inherited more than anybody farming. We have a lot of mineral resources, untapped mineral resources. Why is it we are poor? Because we don't manage anything. Our governors should stop thinking of collecting from the central money and embezzling it without investing it wisely, so that they will lead their state, even without federal government allocation, for a long period of time. I think one of the things that the Tinubu, President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, campaigned with was he governed Lagos State without allocations for a period of time. This is leadership that we want in the North. Governors that can govern their state without allocation.
What do you think about the current crop of governors we have in the North? Do you think they are doing enough to address the issues you're raising and to reposition the North as needed?
Well, they are doing their best. That is what they can offer.
But is their best good enough for you?
It's not. We need more than that. The North need more than that. We need where agriculture will become industrialized. We need a North where Northerners would stop migrating to Lagos, Port Harcourt, and Abuja for a living. And when they come, they do nothing than Okada or nails cutting or other small jobs.
And in talking about religious associations, much has been said about their ineffectiveness or maladministration that has compounded the problems that we're talking about with regard to messaging, rhetoric, and how that is all playing into the dysfunction in our society today. For some, the funding religious groups and associations get from political leaders or even governments is one of the reasons why the messaging sometimes is skewed, because he who pays the piper dictates the tune. When it comes to funding religious organizations, associations, or movements, for instance, where do you stand on that, especially regarding money coming from political figures or politically exposed persons, or even governments, for instance, who are funding seminars, workshops, and all of these things? Do you think that in a way is pocketing some of these potential for accountability in the conversation around good governance?
Of course it is. It's part of ways that politicians at times use to manipulate ideologies, to control and manipulate issues on ground, and even to promote corruption. Because if not so, if somebody is given 100 million, 200 million, 500 million to a religious group, if it is not from his own pocket, that must go through some process, and there must be appropriate for that. And to, well, I cannot say it is 100% that, but there are elements of corruption in doing that.
And do you think it's only fair that religious groups turn down these gifts, these overtures from political figures that may want to, buy their support, so to say?
The issue is not whether the religious group are doing this or that. The issue is that we don't have a country which is concerned about the public. If not, a church must be accountable, because that money is not his own. It's not for the pastor. It is a public money. The mosque must be accountable, because the money there is a public money. And any religious group must be accountable. There must be auditing. But you can't get that from a government which itself is not accountable. And that is why we are calling for a good governance. When you have a good governance, nobody will become multi-billionaire with public funds because he hide himself under the banner of a church or of a mosque. There must be a kind of accountability in the mosque and the church. That is what it's supposed to be.
As a final thought, Dr. Khalid, the political atmosphere is getting heated gradually, because you get a sense that, oh yeah, some sort of political activities and events are all shaping up to what promises to be a very big fight in 2027, for instance, right? In the political parlance. Give me a sense of what you expect to be done differently from especially religious leaders, whom a lot of voters look up to, believe in their messaging, believe in their positions regarding who to vote for or what to look out for in the leaders that will be aspiring to take charge of the affairs of this country at the various strata of our government. What should Nigerians be looking out for, especially from the religious leadership and their messaging?
I think we are expecting them to now start portraying a kind of summary of the performance of the government considering its promises. Have they met their promises? We are expecting, when they want to ask their followers to vote candidate A, they're supposed to tell us that yes, this is the services he done for the nation, and these are the promises he kept, and he was unable to keep this promise because of this. We have to start knowing why we vote for someone, and that is why you will always like the way the foreigners do their own democracy. You find from day one, Trump started to portray that I promise America first, and this is my first day, and I'm trying to reaffirm that America first. Let's start thinking of having someone who will say Nigeria first, and let us vote for him because of that.
Dr. Nuru Khalid, thank you so much for joining the conversation tonight. Appreciate your insight and your analysis on some of these very topical issues. Thank you so much for taking the time for joining us on Daily Politics. Really appreciate you for stopping by.
Thank you.
And that is our show for you tonight. As always, a pleasure having your company. Feel free to stay in touch with us. You can follow us across our social media platforms to get more of this and many other discussions as well as programs. Until next time, my name is Abdullahi Ahmed. From myself and the rest of the team, we'll see you next time live and exclusive on Trust TV. Good evening.